In this video, we're going to talk about the fear of launching your no-code app. This fear is very, very real. Now, if you have been building your no-code app for more than 3 months at this point and you still haven't launched to your first users, this is the video for you. Make sure you stick around until the end because you need to hear every single word of this so that you can actually launch your app and start growing your business, which is, of course, the reason why you came here in the first place. Now, first, if you're new around here, my name is Kristen, and I'm the co-founder of Coaching No Code Apps, where we help business owners and industry experts build custom apps so they can start their app-based businesses or grow their existing businesses all without coding and with no technical background required. So today we're going to talk about the fear of launching because it's a very real thing. If you have been building your app for more than just a few months at this point, you still haven't launched, maybe launching isn't really even in your sights as of yet, that is a problem that I don't want to spiral. Okay, so we're going to jump over to the whiteboard here, and we're going to go through some of this so that you can really move forward more quickly with your app and just with your business overall. So let's say right now, wherever you are, assuming you haven't yet launched your app, you are down here, okay? This is you, and you ideally want to get up here where you are launching your app and actually bringing users on board, monetizing it, growing your business. Okay, there are some stages you need to go through that you need to first go through in order to get up there. So we're going to break this down into just kind of 3 chunks. All right, so we'll say stage 1 is here, stage 2 is up there. So these stages that you need to go through in order to really start expanding your app and treating it as a business and growing it as a business is first you need to go through your alpha stage. Okay, after that, you need to go through your beta stage. And that's when you reach your initial rollout. And this is where you start really expanding your app, growing it as a business. Now, you need to understand these stages because in talking about the fear of launching and the problems that come along with that, you really need to be able to put yourself in one of these stages to see where you're at and where you actually really should be. So in the alpha stage, this is where you are focusing on the core features of your app. So you're solving the core problem for your primary user and you are helping them achieve their core outcome. Okay, it's a very contained version of your app. You're just testing for functionality. Okay, you just want to solve that very core problem. But when you move into the beta stage, that's when you start looking at adoption features. Now, adoption features, they're not necessarily critical to solving that core problem that your app is being designed to solve, but they are needed in order for your users to consistently solve that problem on a day-to-day basis, however often they should be using your app. So these are features that focus on consistent use. And then once you get to that rollout stage, this is where you start looking at expanded features. Okay, and all the while you're, of course, iterating, but in terms of types of features and things that you should be testing for at each stage, this is really what you should be focusing on. Now, the problem that I see happening very frequently is this right here. This should be your first launching point. It's not a big launch. It's not like a grand opening. It's a soft launch. It's your initial beta launch where you start testing for adoption. So your alpha launch can be really small. It's just making sure the functionality is in place. Your beta launch is where people start really getting their hands on the app. They start using it. They start actually solving their problems with it and giving you feedback on that. Okay, so I'm gonna put a number on this and say that 75% of app entrepreneurs, when they get to this point, this first soft launching point, they are scared. They're scared to launch for a few different reasons. And it's completely understandable, right? They're, number one, scared that people might not like what they have. As the person building your app, it's important to you. It means a lot to you. You have put a lot of, sweat and tears potentially into it. You've put a lot of work into it. You care about it. And so when you finally put it out there into the world, it can feel very intimidating because you don't know what people are going to say. And while you should be looking for feedback, both good and bad, nobody wants to hear bad feedback. Nobody wants that. And so it's intimidating because you're afraid of what's going to be said. You're afraid that maybe the app actually isn't good. Like maybe it's only bad feedback. Maybe the good feedback doesn't come. Maybe that means you have to pivot. And thinking about all the potential work the work that you put into it and all the potential work that it would take to pivot, maybe that's just kind of like too much for you to think about at this early stage, right? There's just a lot of these things that come along with launching. Maybe you feel like you just can't launch because the app isn't good enough yet. It doesn't have enough features yet. This is the most common one that I see and hear, and you might have felt this way too. When you go to launch and you technically have all the features that fall into the stage, so you should be launching because they are there. You can feel like you still just need more. And the need for more is often the thing that feels like it's going to solve those other worries, where maybe people won't like it, right? Because you kind of think, well, if I have more features, then people are going to like it more. With that aside, we'll get into that in a second. What happens all too often is, so people get right here where they should launch. You should be launching here. And instead of doing that, they go from here and they build out these features before ever launching. And then they build out these features before ever launching. And pretty soon they have what is really a full scope application that they've never brought outside users onto. They've never started getting real feedback from real users. Maybe they're getting feedback from friends or family, and that can feel like they're getting feedback from users. It's not. And so it's just, they now have this really big app, but they're too many stages ahead and they still haven't launched. And what ends up happening is three things. Number one, just a ton of guessing. The reason why you have a launch right here is so that you can stop guessing. Everything right here in the first version of your app, your pilot app, it is all a guess. It may be a validated guess. It may be a very educated guess, but it's still a guess. Even if you're building this first version for your own personal use, that first version is still a guess because you've never used it before. So you have maybe a validated feature set, but you still don't know how those features will be best applied to your processes. You don't know how well it's really going to solve the problem. You don't know how well it's really going to solve the problem on a consistent basis. It's a guess. And so when you build not only this version, but this version and this version, and you still haven't launched, you are guessing the whole way through. And that is not smart. You don't want to guess. You want to get the app out there so you can stop guessing. Because if you go through this launch, you know what happens? You're no longer the only one dictating how the app expands or how it changes. Now your beta users are helping you and you need that help. You want that help. You should be trying to get that help as soon as you possibly can. So guessing, not a good thing, not something you want. You also end up getting, honestly, terrible feedback. Okay, this is something that a lot of people don't anticipate, all right? But when you don't launch in these phases and you instead wait to launch until you're somewhere out here, well, think about this. Hypothetically, let's say you have a two-sided app. Let's say you're building a marketplace app. And let's say you have a third user type that's an admin. Okay, so you're building the app for 3 people. And let's say you have a core problem that you're solving with the very initial features of the app, right? The ones that should go in here. Maybe you're building a job board and you're letting companies post jobs and applicants apply to jobs. Well, maybe that's the first problem that you're solving, but maybe when you don't launch and instead you move into building these features, you start solving other problems that are related to that first problem. And then maybe you come into here and you start solving other problems. And pretty soon you have 3 user types and you're solving a bunch of problems for each user type. So you can kind of think of this expanding like a web. So, you're coming out here, you have your 3 user types, and then maybe you're solving now like all these problems for all of these users. It's like a web. Now, if you wait until you are out here to start getting feedback from those users, can you imagine going back and realizing that you got to fix something in there that now all of this is built on top of, that you need to change something in here because you made a guess and it wasn't the right one. And now you have to go back and change that when all of this is built on top of it? Not good, not fun. And the feedback is just it's not helpful either, because if you wait to launch your app until it looks like this web and you start getting feedback on these little features out here, well, where's the feedback on this? Where's the feedback on the core? It's muddy. It's messy. It's not helpful, right? So you don't want to get that type of terrible feedback. And you also just end up having a ton of wasted time because of these 2 things, right? Because of all the guessing and because of the bad feedback, what ends up happening more often than not is you realize, okay, you've made it now feature-wise in your brain, the features you think you need, you've made it out here, right? Then you realize, lo and behold, you got to come back here and you have to redo something there, but you just didn't realize it because you never launched and you never got the feedback. All of this, like backtracking from that's a lot of wasted time. For most people, they don't have that time, right? So a fear of launching can very easily cause all of these things. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen more often than I would like to. I don't want to see it happen with you, okay? The reality is you will always be scared to hear what other people have to say, right? That's just kind of the way it goes when you are launching something that you care about, when you're building something that you care about. But unless you hear those things, you'll never grow your business. You just won't. And so you have to get comfortable being a little bit uncomfortable. Once you get past that first hurdle, that first launch, and you start getting the feedback, you're going to feel a lot better, right? There's a Will Smith video on skydiving, right? Taking that leap is one of the scariest things ever. But then once you do, it's actually a lot of fun, right? Once you take that leap and you launch your app and you actually start doing the thing that you intended to do when you came into this space, when you actually bring users on board, you actually help solve their problems, you actually start making money, you actually start growing your business. Once you can actually start doing those things, then yeah, you're going to get some feedback that probably isn't going to be very fun to hear along the way. But like, that's part of growing all of that. That's part of reaping those benefits. Okay, so you got to launch. You have to launch. Don't get stuck. Don't get stuck building out more features just because you're afraid to launch. And also be real with yourself. If you're moving into those next stages and you haven't launched yet, right, you are procrastinating. That is the reality. You're just procrastinating because you're afraid to launch. More is not always better. Your users don't just need more and more before you launch. They need to have a problem solved. So if your core app can solve a single problem for a single type of user and help them achieve a single outcome, launch it, solve the problem, get the feedback, and grow from there. All right, I hope this was helpful. Now, if you're just starting out with your app, or if you have started and you want to make sure you're moving forward in the right direction so that you can avoid all of these problems. We have a free workshop over at coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop that's going to walk you step by step and pretty much just guide you by the hand through a lot of these initial components to make sure you're creating the right strategy for your app, you're creating the right roadmap so that you can launch with the right features, get the right feedback, and grow everything at the right time in the right order and avoid all of these other problems. Okay, so join in on that. Head to coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.